know death when you see it, old man. This is my power.
Hello and welcome back to the D6 Damage Guide to Necromancy. Last time I walked you through how to build a zombie army of your very own, and today, in part 2, we're talking about some of the many other things that the Necromancy School can do. So to kick off our tour through the dark arts, we're starting with the Wizard Necromancy spells. Now, most of these are going to be covered on the spell lists of your other casters, like Cleric, Oracle, Sorcerer and Wizard have the exact same spell list, and Witch. Alright, starting off at 0 level. The first one to take note of is Disrupt Undead. Now this is very much the Necromancy type of spell because it does 1d6 damage to the undead. And since it's a cantrip, you could just cast this over and over again. So if you're some kind of an undead fighter and you find yourself without any options, well, Disrupt Undead is a good backup to have. Now, your much more shady 0 level option is called Touch of Fatigue. Basically, it's a touch attack, and if it succeeds, the target is fatigued. Now, fatigued target can't do a number of things. They can't run, they can't charge, and I'm pretty sure they can't rage. Now, the save against Touch of Fatigue, much like many other Necromancy spells, is Fortitude-based. Alright, next up, level 1. First up is Chill Touch. Chill Touch can be a very dangerous spell if used properly. It does 1d6 of damage plus 1 strength damage, and it can be used up to 3 times per level. Basically, what this means is you cast Chill Touch, and it gives you this touch attack that you can use 3 times per level. So for each caster level you have, you can use Chill Touch 3 times. And yes, that strength damage does stack. The save against the strength damage is Fortitude-based, so be aware. Another fun first-level necromancy spell is Decompose Corpse. Basically, this turns a corpse into a skeleton. There's also Restore Corpse, which turns a skeleton into a corpse. This next spell is your level 1 necromancy bread and butter, Ray of Enfeeblement. It does 1d6 strength damage plus 1 point per 2 levels. And a fortitude save will half this effect, so even if they half it, they're still getting something. This goes up to a maximum of plus 5 strength damage. So that's a theoretical total maximum of 11 strength damage. Finally, for level 1, there's Touch of Blindness. This makes an opponent blind for 1 round per level. Once you cast it, you can then go and touch another character and give them a blind effect. But if you haven't used all your potential touch attacks by the time the duration of the spell runs out, which is 1 round per level, you've wasted all of those remaining touch attacks. Alright, level 2. Blindness/Deafness. This spell requires a fort save to negate. Now, if you blind another character, they take a -2 to AC and lose their dex bonus to AC. And any creature they're fighting receives a 50% miss chance. So this is really valuable, especially if you have rogues in the party, because it's a good setup. Deafness causes a 20% spell failure rate. The next level 2 necromancy spell of interest is False Life. It gives you 1d10 plus 1 per caster level to a maximum of 10 temporary hit points. This lasts for an hour. Now here's a really fun one. Ghoul Touch. What this does is, as a touch attack, you can paralyze a living humanoid for 1d6 plus 2 rounds. And any creature within a 10-foot radius of them, not including yourself, has to make a fort save or be sickened. Also, with the Necromancy School, at level 2, you can get a very interesting way to deliver your touch attacks. By casting the spell Spectral Hand, basically this creates a spooky, ghostly hand out of your own life energy, and it can deliver touch attacks up to level 4, within a range of 100 feet plus 10 feet per level. Now, there are a number of things that aren't explained very well about this spell, like it gives the hand's AC, but it doesn't say what the hand's speed is. So I assume it just sort of flies around and can move anywhere within range during your turn. But you'll have to clear that one up with your DM. Next, at level 3, you have more options, like Gentle Repose. This prevents a corpse from decomposing. This basically extends the time limit of a slain character that they can be reanimated with using the Raise Dead spell. It's kind of situational, but it's potentially helpful. Next up, Halt Undead. This is basically the undead version of Hold Person. Unintelligent undead don't get a will save, but I wouldn't recommend wasting this spell on them, unless they're, a really big deal. This will, however, be very helpful if you're a vampire hunter. And in pretty much every way, it functions like Hold Person. They get a will save every round to try and break the effect. Then there's Ray of Exhaustion. This does 1d6 strength and 1d6 dex damage for 1 minute per level. Finally, at level 3, there's Vampiric Touch. This is one of the few necromancy spells which is actually gonna straight up kill somebody. It does 1d6 damage per 2 caster levels to a maximum of 10d6 at level 20. There is no save against it, and you can take as much health from a creature as it has hit points plus their constitution score. And you retain these temporary hit points because the spell gives you temporary hit points for 1 hour. Alright, at level 4, you get some truly killer debuffs, such as Bestow Curse. With this one, it really pays to be creative, but you do have the generic options of a -6 to any ability score, a -4 on all attacks, saves, and skill checks, or you can afflict your target with something like Confusion. Basically, at the end of their turn, they have a 50% chance of just not doing anything. A will save is required against this spell, and if they fail it, the duration is permanent. Next up, Contagion. Basically, this allows you to give a creature a nasty disease. They get to make a fort save against this effect. Next up, Enervation. This gives 1d4 negative levels, and this can be a nasty one. Basically, they lose -5 hit points. There's a -5 hit point reduction per negative level, and they take a -1 penalty on attacks and are treated as 1 level lower for spell effects. However, casters don't lose spell slots or spells prepared, which is kind of too bad, but still. That is an extremely nasty effect. That will last them for 15 hours. Then there's Fear. This causes a living creature to become panicked for 1 round per level, and a will save reduces this to 1 round of being shaken. This attack basically comes out in a 30-foot cone, so all creatures within that cone have to roll against Fear. Alright, finally at level 4 there is a truly humdinger of a spell called Shadow Projection. This allows you to literally become a shadow. Basically, you get all the Shadow's defensive abilities, and you get a touch attack which does strength damage. This effect will last for 1 round per level. Now, if you're dropped to 0 hit points while in shadow form, your spirit will return to your body, which you have to kind of leave somewhere, and your body will be at -1 hit points. And then you have to roll immediately to stabilize. But still, that's a lot better than being dead. Alright, finally at level 5, there's the necromancy spell Magic Jar. This allows you to possess a living creature. The rules for this are very convoluted, and it's sort of expensive. But if done properly, you can take control of another creature's body while leaving your own body basically comatose. There is range to consider, and if your host body dies outside of that range, or if the spell ends outside of that range, you're ejected from the body and you die. Then there's Suffocation. This is basically a 3-round fort or die. It's a good way to take people out of the fight, but if your goal is to just kill somebody, I think you have a couple of better options in other schools. Now, if you want to keep your undead servants on the DL, I highly recommend the Daywalker spell. This makes an undead creature look alive. So if you're, say, going with the option of putting all of your hit die of undead that you can create into one creature, Daywalker is a good way to disguise it so it can wander around and do your bidding without any, potential consequences of it being noticed. Now, a kind of situational one is Plague Carrier. This basically gives the natural attacks of your chosen target Filth Fever. A good place to use it would be, say, on your skeletons who have a claw attack, but one of the issues is the DC of the save against the disease is based on the creature's constitution modifier, so your own undead servants don't have constitution, so you might want to, say, save it for, like, a druid with claws or something. Then there's Symbol of Pain. This is basically a magical trap, and it's very situational to use and expensive to create, but if you pull it off, your chosen target will receive a -4 on attacks and saves, as well as skill checks, for 10 minutes per level. Finally, there's Vampiric Shadow Shield. Ooh, spooky. What this does is creatures attacking you take 1d6 plus 1 damage per caster level, and you receive 25% of the damage dealt as healing. you must be in melee range for this effect to occur. Finally, we're going to look at a couple cleric spells which I think are noteworthy that weren't covered under the Wizard Necromancy school list. First, there's the old standby Doom. This causes a creature to be shaken for 1 round per level. They get a will save. There's also the Inflict series of spells. These are going to be your bread and butter as a necromantic cleric or a negative energy cleric, because you can cast them spontaneously. This basically functions exactly like Cure Wounds, but they do damage instead. When you're attempting to use this on another creature, they receive a will save to half. Up next, there's Deadly Juggernaut. Basically what this does is it gives you a cumulative bonus based on creatures you've killed. For every creature you kill, up to a maximum of 5, you receive a +1 on attack rolls, damage, and strength checks. You also receive DR2 to a maximum of DR10, and that is only bypassed by damage, which inherently passes all DR, and those are fairly rare. Finally, there's the spell Poison. This does 1d3 con damage for 6 rounds. Alright, and those are some of the many terrible things you can do with Necromancy. I'm going to conclude this series on Necromancy with part 3, where I go through how to optimize your wizard or your cleric to get the most out of this deadly, deadly school. Thank you for watching D6 Damage. If you're interested in more reviews, class analysis guides, or strategy videos about Dungeons & Dragons or Pathfinder, check us out right here on YouTube.